Hello, my name is Melba Joyce Boyd, and I'm a Detroit-based poet, so many of my poems are coming out of that particular historical and cultural space. And I thought I'd start with a poem that I wrote for Aretha Franklin upon her passing, and it's entitled Aretha Franklin, Rock Steady for the Queen of Soul. I have a quote from Ray Charles. At the beginning, Aretha sang the way Black folks sing when they leave themselves alone, unquote. God lifted your regal voice, invoking your father's seamless faith and mission, marching with Martin to sing for our king, for his vision, for his dream. Mary, don't you weep, Pharaoh's army got drowned. Your song soars like angels, strengthen our resolve, demand respect like a natural woman, to think, to do right, despite racial strife or some low-down man inflicting endless grief on a woman's pain, 'cause ain't no way for me to love you. Hailing from New Bethel Baptist, your gospels bring healing to sorrow, subvert suffering, inspire choirs, preachers in pulpits, and even the Pope. Got to find me an angel. Your rhythm and blues are liberation anthems, bridge over troubled waters, elevating inaugurations for Presidents Clinton and Obama, crowning your legacy gold with the Freedom Medal of Honor. What it is, what it is, what it is. Amazing grace. How sweet is your sound, born in Memphis, raised up in Detroit City, reaching Spanish Harlem, with spiritual reverberations, scaling a nation's blues, revolutionizing American music, blessing an entire world, making us whole. What it is, what it is, what it is. Sister Ree's gone home. Mary, don't you weep. Martha, don't you moan. Rock steady, baby, rock steady for the Queen of Soul. The next poem I'm going to read, I wrote for Trayvon Martin. And I wrote this after his killer was acquitted. And I actually felt so much grief and sadness for that injustice that I wrote this as a poem of healing. It's entitled, It Could Have Been Me, which is taken from a quote from President Obama when he responded to the killing of Trayvon Martin. It could have been me. If I had a son, he would look like Trayvon. He is handsome, skin the color of coffee cream and cinnamon, slight of build with a physique yet to become. He is shrouded under hooded myths and shadows of white guilt. Grasping fists armed with a package of rainbow-colored candy, he is stalked while striding across grounds of a gated compound, targeted by imaginary fears enforcing Americanism. How does Trayvon stand his ground when he steps beyond borders of the reservation? What can a black boy do when the man with a gun comes? How do you walk away from death aimed at your back? It could have been me, the president said. It could have been me. The next poem was written upon the 50th anniversary of the 1967 rebellion in Detroit. And this poem, has traveled a bit and was published in a journal called Black Noir at New York University. The title is Eulogy for Detroit, 1967, and it too has a quote at the beginning. Repression breeds retaliation. Robert Kennedy. Cops slap, swear, shove, injure, and threaten with weapons. People swing back, shatter car windows and load rifles. Flames erupt, business explodes, smoke surrounds 12th and Claremont. as city and state police bullets riddle apartment buildings like target practice for Vietnamese villages. U.S. Army tanks plow down boulevards. Mother and child huddle behind barricaded doors, fear frozen in July heat. Snipers return fire into the storm. Beneath neon palm trees flickering inside smoke clouds, police trap unarmed civilians in the Algiers motel. An allusion to Africa, or a scene in Casablanca, a film where Sam, the black piano man, plays for Bogart, the hero fighting fascism. Cooper, Pollard, and Temple, 3 black teenagers caught crossing the color line, aspiring pimps partying with white chicks, caught betwixt and between the skin game and police rage, emboldened by firepower and martial law. 3 young men trapped in the annex of civil disobedience, like movie extras doomed in a script, or like refugees detained at the border without citizenship, restrained, beaten, and murdered in the recesses of city unrest. In the aftermath, ignorant and absent of brown peers, of family or community grief for the deceased, 12 jurors boxed in a white courtroom, beyond inner city view, dismiss witnesses and evidentiary examples, and deem murders by cop justifiable homicides of Carl Cooper, Harvey Pollard, and Fred Temple, unarmed teenagers guilty only of carnal sin and dark skin. The Algiers motel now lies beneath the clay of decay, while 12th Street recalls Rosa Parks, a veteran of domestic wars, symbolic renaming on the outskirts of city planning and sacred burial grounds. 50 years hence, people live with history twisted by myths, brooding with untruths, to justify retaking the city from survivors of 67, repossessing homes with excessive taxes, extreme insurance rates, and soaring utility bills for water too expensive to drink, even in the city of Flint, where rusted lead pipes funnel poison into kitchen sinks, while arsonists acquire acreage for real estate moguls to house hipsters, born-again Republicans, and capitalist investors, claiming to save us from ourselves as white folks move back and the mayor ain't black. Peregrine falcons once soared above skyscrapers and perched on gargoyles, viewing museums filled with tempered memories savored for patrons on passages to yesteryears. This poem is a eulogy, a remembering, an unearthing of blood-stained graves, reopening caskets to treat wounds, enabling healing 50 years after 67, to retrieve breath currents of 43 lives, rising and falling with the undertow of memory, seeking full measure of human remains. The next poem, it's actually a set of poems that I wrote, was for the special exhibit of Romare Bearden's art in the High Museum in Atlanta, Georgia. There were a number of poets who were asked to write, and since I was here in Detroit, I felt it was important to write about Romare Bearden's presence here in the city. He was commissioned by the Detroit Institute of Arts upon the centennial anniversary of the museum to do this amazing mural that you can see if you get down to the museum. But also he has other pictures in there, and also I looked at photographs that were taken of him while he was visiting here in Detroit. So there are references to a number of important and significant Detroit figures in the poem, and also writers in the African American literary canon. So I think of this poem as my sort of mural for Bearden. Mirrored vision. Bearden collects artifacts from disparate paths along migration trails leading north to Harlem, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Chicago, and Detroit, where a man can get $5 a day to sling steel from Mr. Ford's foundry. Buses and trains go away from bone-weary, broke-down plantation shacks where sharecroppers wish and pray white folks gon' get better when Jesus get back. Loss and longing, refracted reflections in mirrored memories, wrapped in familiar fabrics, attached to dated newsprint, still photographs, and misplaced postcards, retrieved and reconceived into elsewhere, as colors giving shape and forms, rendering something, stepping out of shadow, out of echo. Diego and Romer, from a photograph by Frank Stewart. Romer poses next to Diego's frescoes of laborers, metalworkers, engineers, and drafters crafted into a mural to enshrine Detroit's working class. Earth, wind, sun, and rain are women, figures of four races with one soul, stretching across continents and oceans, connecting ethnicities, imprinting power, hope, and aspirations of sons and daughters of serfs, slaves, and servants, building automobiles, crafting dreams from sweat and grit, rendered as sacrifice to breathe a little freer at daybreak. The dinner, from a photograph by Frank Stewart. The photographer frames the physician at the head of the heavy oak dining table, directly across from Romer Bearden, the esteemed artist, seated outside the photograph, but inside his gaze. The setting is like a painting Bearden arranges the patrons accordingly by styles and shapes, amid expressions about Jacob Lawrence, Elizabeth Catlett, and other demarcations of distinction in this remarkable collection of the physician who sees healing in art. Bearden sits where Sterling Brown once sat, sharing stories about labor struggles of strong men with the city's mayor, Coleman Alexander Young, who recites this poem by heart to honor the poet's visit and his poem that inspired a generation refusing to submit, that never did quit. Bearden admires the doctor's library and reminisces about his generation of poets, about Langston Hughes's blues and jazz verses, about Robert Hayden's elegies of Paradise Valley, and Dudley Randall's Ballad of Birmingham, and Roses and Revolutions. Tomorrow, Bearden's Quilting Time will be unveiled, and refractions of lives unknown, unseen, recognized in a mosaic made from tiny glass tiles, marking the centennial of the Detroit Museum. And in that moment, Bearden's art collects wonder size, and his aesthetics spark renewed purpose for conversations framed at dinner tables as visions of Romer Bearden and Diego Rivera converge in their mutual appreciation for workers building cars for their arrival drive south, their annual drive south for Quilting Time. The last poem in this collection is entitled Quilting Time, which is hopefully a reflection to Romer Bearden's mosaic that hangs in the Detroit Institute of Art. Time, a circle, never ending like interlocking fragments of cloth, grandmother ranges in geometric patterns, interfacing pale floral prints, worn in the springtime with satin strips from her grandmother's white wedding dress. Aligning black rectangles clipped from a necktie, framing red-blue squares, accentuating borders, with the retelling of stories about chopping cotton on plantations and dicing green peppers from backyard gardens to flavor gumbo in an iron pot simmering over an ageless fire. Quilting time is time to gather children, to recall kinfolk, to summon ghosts who resemble newborns and distant cousins, to recall the ancestor from another century, arriving in Louisiana with the French, a free person of color, she imagines with the next stitch, before turning taut to her tongue, dry as cotton during the drought, and who drowned in the floodwaters after the fierce storm in 26, when the last generation left the farm for jobs in the city. Uncle Dre strums the guitar, rephrasing a blues refrain for each season, giving and retreating, revisiting and reflecting, as grandmother links birth dates with death dates, recording legacy as exactly inscribed with black ink in the family Bible, inside refractions of a mosaic quilt of rainbow glass. Not a single cloud disturbs the expansive blue reaching for the heavens. No beginning, no ending, only layers of life, interfacing flesh and spirit, the surreality of returning stardust, reimagining space at sunset. I have one last poem I want to read. This is a poem that sort of evolves and it gets longer and longer. The longer I live, the more I have to say. And it's probably going to continue to grow until things get better or until I stop writing. It's sort of a long poem, but the rhythm, I think, is rather fast. So, and I'd like to end with that. We want our city back. We want our city back. We want our street lights on. We want our garbage gone. We want our children playing on playgrounds, but not with loaded guns. We want to retire by the river and raise collard greens in abandoned fields. We want our ancestors to rest in peace. We want our city back. We don't want law and order. We want justice and jobs. We don't want small business. We mean serious business. No more mom and pop wig shops. No more Mickey D's rapping with the homies. No more dollar stores. We need groceries. No more Dixie Colonels serving Kente cloth cuisine. No more Taco Supreme. No more indigestion of quick fix politics. We want our city back. We don't want police harassing the homeless for being without a lease. We don't want video cops busting crackheads with flashlights at night. We want peacekeepers to capture the real dope men, reclining in respectable privilege. We want our taxes to track down the real assassins. We want our city back. We don't want Eurocentric or Afro-eccentric educations. We want a freedom curriculum. We want a liberated vision in history remembered. We don't want our children crunched like computer chips to fit in the old world order, worshiping slave-holding societies in Egypt or Greece. We want the Board of Education to take a lie detector test for neglect of the intellect, for assault on our children's senses. We don't want them to be GM execs or rejects in labor camps. We want dignity, not cupidity. We want our city back. No more tech sex mess. No more zoot suit mayors shuffling skeletons and abuses like gamblers losing paychecks. No more ex-basketball suburban bingaling mayors ignoring inner city citizens living next to boarded up doors and bolted windows. No more broken trees. No more Motor City casinos or dilapidated buildings where junkies, rodents, and vermin spring. We want our city back. We want the river dredged for distraught souls. We want our homes rebuilt. We want the guilty to pay a greed tax for the living they stole. No more poison water. No more Republican managers. We merge but cannot see. We want our city back. We want our country back from this rebirth of a racist nation, from a man who shakes hands with the Ku Klux Klan, reversing religious freedoms and deporting people God painted tan. Hey, we ain't going away like fugitive slaves escaping to Canada. Our backs are up against the wall. This is our clarion call. Feed the hungry, clothe the ragged, heal the sick, enlighten the ignorant, punish the wicked, and raise the dead. We want our streetlights on. We want our garbage gone. We want to be rid of smack and crack. We want to retire by the river. We want our ancestors to rest in peace. We are claiming our history, seizing the hour, because we mean to take our city and our country back. Thank you.